Mr. Diddy.
This is a Heart of a Simba production. Where we strive to blow up your old paradigms.
You are now listening to Gye-Nyame Journey Radio.
This is Days, and you're listening to Gye-Nyame Journey Radio.
This is Shamika. This is Gye-Nyame Journey Radio.
Say this is Sasha. And you are now listening to Gye-Nyame Journey Radio. Peace.
Radio.
Peace.
Peace.
Be sure to follow Gye-Nyame Journey on Facebook, Google+, and Twitter. Check us out. Join the journey.
Man, it's another great day in Simbaland. I'd like to welcome everybody. Unfortunately, I can't do it live because the signal is horrible out here. It's horrible. But yo, we pressing through, we're pushing through, we're making it. Yo, so now, to my salute to the ancestors, because the young people are heading over to the libations tree, I'm going to pour a double salute. One, I'm going to salute a brother that passed away in Columbus by the name of Shabaka Toure, and I'm going to salute him by reading one of his favorite authors, leaders, and speakers, Kwame Ture. So I'm gonna get into Kwame Ture. You know, Kwame Ture is long too. So if I fall asleep while I'm reading it, y'all bear with me. I might have to take a break. I might need to throw in some music. As a matter of fact, while I'm talking to you right now, I'm gonna bring up another tune and put it on my thing. Maybe two more tunes because Stokely Carmichael could talk. So I'm going to go and read his message, and the message that he had was spoken in 1966, and it's called Black Power. It's a famous speech. A lot of us use some of the stuff from the speech, but I'm starting to notice that even though we use a lot of stuff from the speeches, many people may not really have heard or read the whole thing. And what's even more incredible, I done read Frederick Douglass, I done read Martin Luther King, I done read Marcus Garvey, and all the things that these individuals were dealing with back then are still relevant today. The strategies and the ideas that they had from back then are still relevant today. So listen to this, and like I said, if you like it, share it. You know what I'm saying? Help me get some more followers. And remember, you know, where else in the world would I be able to do what I'm doing right now other than in Simbaland? I know I could do some of this at home, but now I had the time to think, got my head clear. I said, boom, they pouring libations. I'm inside. What can I do to help them as far as the libations? So I'm calling on the ancestors by repeating the words that they wrote and the words that they spoke. So here is the Gye-Nyame journey and the Simba Circle salute to Stokely Carmichael, also known as Kwame Ture. Black Power. It is a privilege and an honor to be in the white intellectual ghetto of the West. This is a student conference, as it should be, held on a campus, and will never be caught up in intellectual masturbation on the question of black power. That's the function of the people who are advertisers but call themselves reporters. Incidentally, for my friends and members of the press, my self-appointed white critics, I was reading Mr. Bernard Shaw 2 days ago, and I came across a very important quote that I think it is most apropos to you. He says, all criticism is an autobiography. Dig yourself, okay? The philosopher's campus and satire raised the question of whether or not a man could condemn himself. The black existentialist philosopher, who is pragmatic, Frantz Fanon, answered the question. He said that man could not. Camus and Sauter don't answer the question. We and Snick tend to agree with Fanon. A man cannot condemn himself. If he did, he would then have to incarcerate, or he would then have to inflict punishment upon himself. An example is the Nazis. Any of the Nazi prisoners who, after he was caught and incarcerated, admitted that he committed crimes, that he killed all the many people he killed, had to commit suicide. The only one able to stay alive were the ones who never admitted that they committed a crime against the people. That is, the ones who rationalized that Jews were not human beings and deserved to be killed, or that they were only following order. There's another more recent example provided by the officials and the populations, the white population of Neshoba County, Mississippi. That's where Philadelphia is. They could not condemn Sheriff Rainey, his deputies, and the other 14 men who killed 3 human beings. They could not, because they elected Mr. Rainey to do precisely what he did, and condemning him would be condemning themselves. In a much larger view, Snick says that white America cannot condemn herself for her criminal acts against black America. So black people have done it. You stand condemned. The institutions that function in this country are clearly racist. They're built upon racism. The question to be dealt with then are, how can black people inside this country move? How can white people who say they're not part of those institutions begin to move? And how then do we begin to clear away the obstacles that we have in society to make us live like human beings? Several people have been upset because we said that integration was irrelevant when initiated by blacks, and that in fact it was an insidious subterfuge for the maintenance of white supremacy. In the past 6 years or so, this country has been feeding us a Gye-Nyame drug of integration. And some Negroes have been walking down a dream street talking about sitting next to white people. That does not begin to solve the problem. We didn't go to Mississippi to sit next to Ross Barnett, former governor of Mississippi. We did not go to sit next to Jim Clark, sheriff of Selma, Alabama. We went to get them out of our way. People ought to understand that. We were not fighting for the right to integrate. We were fighting against white supremacy. In order to understand white supremacy, we must dismiss the fallacious notion that white people can give anybody his freedom. A man is born free. You may enslave a man after he is born free, and that is in fact what this country does, and enslaves blacks after they're born. The only thing white people can do is stop denying black people their freedom. I maintain that every civil rights bill in the country was passed for white people, not for black people. For example, I am black. I know that. I also know that while I am black, I am a human being. Therefore, I have the right to go into any public place. White people don't know that. Every time I try to go into a public place, they stop me. So some boys had to write a bill to tell the white man he's a human being. Don't stop him. That bill was for white men, not for me. I knew I could vote all the time, and that it wasn't a privilege, but my right. Every time I tried, I was shot, killed, or jailed, beaten, or economically deprived. So somebody had to write a bill to tell white people, when a black man comes to vote, don't bother him. That bill was for white people. I know I can live any place I want to live. It is white people across the country who are incapable of allowing me to live where I want. You need a civil rights bill, not for me. You need a civil rights bill, not for me. The failure of the civil rights bill isn't because of black power or because of student. Be it inside the United States, Vietnam, South Africa, the Philippines, South America, Puerto Rico, or whatever America has been, or wherever America has been. We not only condemn the country for what it has done internally, but we must condemn it for what it does externally. We see this country trying to rule the world, and someone must stand up and start articulating that the country is not God and that it cannot rule the world. The white supremacist attitude, which you have either consciously or subconsciously, is running rampant through society today. For example, missionaries were sent to Africa with the attitude that blacks were automatically inferior. As a matter of fact, the first act that missionaries did when they got to Africa was to make us cover up our bodies, because they said it got them excited. We couldn't go bare-breasted anymore because they got excited. When the missionaries came to civilize us because we were uncivilized, to educate us because we were uneducated, and to give us some literate studies because we were illiterate, they charged a price. The missionaries came with the Bible, and we had the land. When they left, they had the land, and we still had the Bible. That's been a rationalization for Western civilization as it moves across the world, stealing, plundering, and raping everybody in its path. There's one rationalization, is that the rest of the world is uncivilized and that they are in fact civilized. But the West is uncivilized, and that still runs on today. You see, because now we have modern day missionaries, and they come into our ghettos. Their heads start, upward lift, bootstrap, and upward bound us into white society. They don't want to face the real problem. A man is poor for one reason, and one reason only. He does not have money. If you want to get rid of poverty, you give people money. And if you ought not to tell me about people who don't work, and that you can't give people money if they don't work. Because if that were true, you have to start stopping Rockefeller, Kennedy, Lyndon Baines Johnson, Lady Bird Johnson, the whole Standard Oil, the Gulf Corporation, all of them, including probably a large number of the board of trustees of these universities. The question then is not whether or not one can work, it's who has power to make his or her acts legitimate. That is all. In his country, the power is invested in the hands of white people, and it makes their acts legitimate. All right, now I kind of had to stop that because, one, I want to do a quick reflection. Remember, this is 1966. This is 1966. And what he said in 1966 is still relevant, so something is wrong. Something is wrong. All right. So let me get back to it. Y'all ready? Let's jump back into it. We are now engaged in a psychological struggle in this country about whether or not black people have the right to use the words they want to use without white people giving their sanction. We maintain the use of the words black power. Let them address themselves to that. We are not going to wait for white people to sanction black power. We're tired of waiting. Every time black people try to move in this country, they're forced to defend their position beforehand. It's time that white people do that. They ought to start defending and it's a downright lie. We are opposed, we are oppressed as a group because we are black. Not because we are lazy or apathetic, not because we're stupid or we stink, not because we eat watermelon or have good rhythm. We are oppressed because we are black. In order to escape that oppression, we must wield the group power we have, not the individual power that this country sets as the criterion under which a man may come into it. That's what is called integration. You do what I tell you to do, and we'll let you sit at the table with us. Well, if you believe in integration, you can come live in Watts. Send your children to the ghetto schools. Let's talk about that. If you believe in integration, then we're going to start adopting some white people to live in our neighborhoods. So it is clear that this question is not one of integration or segregation. We cannot afford to be concerned about the 6% black children in this country whom you allow to enter white schools. You are going to be concerned about the 94%. You ought to be concerned about them too. But are we willing to be concerned about the black people who will never get to Berkeley, never get to Harvard, and cannot get an education? The ones you'll never get a chance to rub shoulders with and say why he's almost as good as we are. He's not like the others. The question is, how can white society begin to move to see black people as human beings? I am black, therefore I am. Not I am black and I must go to college to prove myself. I am black, therefore I am. Don't deprive me of anything and say to me that you must go to college before you can gain access to X, Y, and Z. That's only a rationalization for suppression. The political parties of this country do not meet the needs of the people on a day-to-day basis. How can we build new political institutions that will become the political expressions of people? How can we build political institutions that will begin to meet the needs of Oakland, California? The needs of Oakland, California is not 1,000 policemen with submachine guns. They need that least of all. How can we build institutions that will allow those people to function on a day-to-day basis so that they can get decent jobs and have decent houses, and that they can begin to participate in the policy and make decisions that affect their lives? That's what they need, not the Gestapo troops, because this is no 1942, and if you play like Nazis, we're going to play Jews this time around. We're not going to play Jews this time around. Get hip to that. Can white people move inside their own community and start tearing down racism where in fact it exists? It is you who live in Cicero and stopped us from living there. White people stopped us from moving into Grenada, Mississippi. White people make sure that we live in the ghettos of this country. White institutions do that. They must change. In order for America to really live on a basic principle of human relationships, a new society must be born. Racism must die. The economic exploitation by this country of non-white people around the world must also die. The question is, can white activists stop trying to be a Pepsi generation who came alive in black community and be a man who's willing to move into white community and start organizing where the organization is needed? Can he do that? Can a white activist disassociate himself from the clowns who waste time parrying with each other and start talking about the problems that are facing people in this state? You must start inside the white community. Our political position is that we don't think the Democratic Party represents the needs of black people. We know that it does not. If in fact white people believe that they're going to move inside this structure, how are they going to organize around a concept of whiteness based on true brotherhood and on stopping economic exploitation in order to form a coalition base for black people to hook up with? You cannot build a coalition based on national sentiment. If you want a coalition to address itself to real changes in this country, white people must start building those institutions inside the white community. And that's the real question, faction. That's the real question, faction, that white activists today. That's the real question facing white activists today. Can they tear down the institutions that have put us all in the trick bag we've been into for the last 100 years? Frederick Douglass said that the youth should fight to be leaders today. God knows we need to be leaders today because the men who run this country are sick. We must begin to start building those institutions and to fight to articulate our position, to fight to be able to control our universities. We need to be able to do that, to fight to control the basic institutions that perpetuates racism by destroying them and building new ones. That's the real question that faces us today. And it is a dilemma because most of us don't know how to work. Most white activists run into the black community as an excuse. We cannot have white people working in the black community or on psychological grounds. The fact is that all black people question whether or not they are equal to whites, since every time they start to do something, white people are around showing them how to do it. If we are going to eliminate that for the generation that comes after us, then black people must be in a position of power, doing and articulating for themselves. That's not reverse racism. It is moving on to healthy ground. It is becoming what the philosopher satire says, an anti-racist racist. And this country can't understand that. If everybody who's white sees himself as a racist and sees us against him, he's speaking from his own guilt. We do not have the power in our hands to change the institution of war in this country, to begin to recreate it so that they can learn to leave the Vietnamese people alone. The only power we have is the power to say hell no to the draft. The war in Vietnam is illegal and immoral. The question is, what can we do to stop the war? What can we do to stop the people who, in the name of America, are willing to kill babies, women, and children? We have to say to ourselves that there's a higher law than the law of a fool named Rusk. There's a higher law than a law stop the war in Vietnam when the young men who are made to fight it begin to say, hell no, we are not going. The peace movement has been a failure because it hasn't gotten off the college campuses where everybody has a 25 and is not afraid of being drafted anyway. The problem is, how can you move out of that into the white ghettos of this country and articulate a position for those white youth who do not want to go? You cannot do that. It is sometimes ironic that many of the peace groups have begun to call SNCC violent, and they say that they can no longer support us, when we are in fact the most militant organization for peace or civil rights or human rights against the war in Vietnam in this country today. There isn't one organization that has begun to meet our stand on the war in Vietnam. We not only say we are against the war in Vietnam, we are against the draft. No man has the right to make a man for 2 years and take a man for 2 years and train him to be a killer. Any black man fighting in the war in Vietnam is nothing but a black mercenary. Any black man leaves this country where he can't vote to supposedly deliver the vote to somebody else He's a black mercenary. Anytime a black man leaves this country, gets shot in Vietnam on foreign ground, and returns home, and you won't give him a burial place in his own homeland, he's a black mercenary. Even if I believe the lies of Johnson, that's where fighting to give democracy to the people of Vietnam. As a black man living in this country, I wouldn't fight to give this to anybody. We have to use our bodies and our minds in the only way that we see fit. We must begin, as the philosopher Kant says, to come alive by saying no. This country is a nation of thieves. It stole everything it has, beginning with black people. The U.S. cannot justify its existence as the policemen of the world any longer. The Marines are at the ready disposal to bring democracy. And if the Vietnamese don't want democracy, well then, we'll just wipe them out, because they won't deserve to live if they won't have our way of life. There's more. There is a more immediate question. What do you do on your campus? Do you raise questions about the 100 black students who were kicked off campus a couple of weeks ago? 800? And how does the question begin to move? Do you begin to relate to people outside the ivory towers and the university walls? Do you think you're capable of building those human relationships based on humanity when the country is the way it is, when the institutions are clearly against us? We have found all the myths of the country to be nothing but downright lies. We were told that if we worked hard, we would succeed. And if that were true, we would own this country lock, stock, and barrel. We have picked the cotton for nothing. We are the maids in the kitchens of the liberal white people. We are the janitors, the porters, and elevator men. We sweep up your college floors. We are the hardest workers and the lowest paid. It is nonsensical for people to talk about human relationships until they are willing to build new institutions. Black people are economically insecure, while liberals are economically secure. Can you begin to build an economic coalition? Are the liberals willing to share their salaries with the economically insecure black people they so much love? Then if you're not, are you willing to start building new institutions that will provide economic security for black people? That's the question we want to deal with. American students are perhaps the most politically unsophisticated student in the world.
Mr. Diddy.
All right, now. All right, so we made it through. I had to put on 2 songs. I had to take a break, and one of my brothers, Brother Yale, came. He was talking with me. Gave me some new information, some good information, by the way. But I'm back, and we're going to push through the rest because we're almost done. But once again, I stress the fact of how pertinent what Kwame Ture said back in 1966, how pertinent it is to us today. And it kind of bothers me that we constantly are running into people who are dealing with the same issue that we were dealing with as Africans in America, as black folks in America, and they spoke about it, and they spoke out against it. And now, as we move forward, supposedly in the future and things, we keep on saying things are better, but you listen to what they're talking about, and you start seeing that maybe there has not been as much change as possible. There's been some cosmetic changes. We're able to sit at counters and stuff, but we have no economic power. We have no control over our community. We have no control over the politics. You know what I'm saying? We have no control over the education of our children. So, the only thing we can do is supplement everything that's being presented to us, right? So now I want to finish. We're going to finish this up. I hope some of y'all have some comments, because I didn't fall asleep on this one, right? Didn't fall asleep on this one. So I don't know who I'm going to do tomorrow. So some of you that's listening, if you're interested in me doing this and continuing this, y'all can send in suggestions, because I just found a site with thousands, I ain't going to say thousands, with hundreds of speeches, right? And this could be something that we do on a regular basis, but this is up to you, all right? So this is Brother Tim. I'm going to keep it moving. Back to Stokely Carmichael at the time, now also known as Kwame Ture, one of the honored ancestors, and this is our salute to the ancestors. Across every country of the world, while we were growing up, students were leading the major revolution of their cities. We have not been able to do that. They have been politically aware of their existence. In South America, our neighbors have one every 24 hours just to remind us that they are politically aware. But we have been unable to grasp it because we've always moved in the field of morality and love, while people have been politically jiving with our lives. You can't move morally against men like Brown and Reagan. You can't move morally against Lyndon Baines Johnson. Is the best system in the world. It doesn't appear that the two-party system is the best in the world. We have to raise questions about whether we need new types of political institutions in this country. And we in SNCC maintain that we need them now. Anytime Lyndon Baines Johnson can head a party that has in it Bobby Kennedy, Wayne Morse, Eastland, Wallace, and all those other supposed to be liberal cats, there's something wrong with that party. They're moving politically, not morally. If that party refuses to seat black people from Mississippi and goes ahead and seats racists like Eastern and his clique, it's clear to me that they're moving politically. And that one cannot begin to talk morality to people like that. We must question the values of the society. And I maintain that black people are the best people to do that, since we have been excluded from that society. We ought to think whether or not we want to become part of that society. That's precisely what the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee is doing. We are raising questions about this country. I do not want to be part of the American pie. The American pie means raping South Africa, beating Vietnam, beating South America, raping the Philippines, raping every country you've been in. And I don't want any of your blood money. I don't want to be part of that system. We are the generation who has found this country to be a world power and the wealthiest country in the world. We must question whether or not We want this country to continue being the wealthiest country in the world at the price of reaping or raping everybody else. And because black people are saying we do not now want to become part of you, we are called reverse racists. Ain't that a gas? White society has caused the failure of nonviolence. I was always surprised at Quakers who came to Alabama and counseled me to be nonviolent, but didn't have the guts to tell James Clark to be nonviolent. That's where nonviolence needs to be preached, to Jim Clark, not to black people. White people should conduct their nonviolent schools in Cicero where they are needed, not among black people in Mississippi. 6'2" men kick little black children in Grenada. Can you conduct nonviolent schools there? Can you name one black man today who has killed anybody white and is still alive? Even after rebellion, when some black brothers throw bricks and bottles, 10,000 of them have to pay the price. When a white policeman comes in, anybody who's black is arrested because we all look alike. The youth of this country must begin to raise those questions. We are going to have to change the foreign policy of this country. One of the problems with the peace movement is that it is too caught up in Vietnam. And if America pull out the troops from Vietnam this week, next week you have to get another peace movement for Santo Domingo. We have to hook up the black people around the world. And that hookup must not only be psychological but real. If South America were to rebel today and black people were to shoot the hell out of all the white people there, as they should, Standard Oil would crumble tomorrow. If South Africa were to go today, Chase Manhattan Bank would crumble tomorrow. If Zimbabwe, which is called Rhodesia by white people, were to go tomorrow, General Electric would cave in on the East Coast. How do we stop those institutions that are willing to fight against communist aggression but close their eyes against racist oppression? We're not talking about a policy of aid sending Peace Corps people in to teach people how to read and write and build houses while we steal their raw material from them, because that's all this country does. What underdeveloped countries need is information about how to become industrialized so they can keep their raw materials where they have them, produce goods, sell them to this country for the price it's supposed to pay. Instead, Americans keep selling goods back to them for a profit and keep sending our modern-day missionaries there, calling them the sons of Kennedy. And if the youth are going to participate in that program, how do you begin to control the Peace Corps? This country assumes that if someone is poor, they are poor because of their own individual blight, or because they weren't born on the right side of town, or they had too many children, or went in the army too early, or because their father was a drunk, or that they didn't care about school. They made a mistake. That's a lot of nonsense. Poverty is well calculated in this country, and the reason why the poverty programs won't work is because the calculators of poverty are administrating them. How can you, as youth in this country, move to start carrying those things out? Move into the white community. We have developed a community in the black community. The white activist has miserably failed to develop the movement inside of his community. Will white people have the courage to go into the white communities and start organizing them? That's the question for the white activists. We won't get caught up in a question about power. The country knows what power is. It knows what black power is because it deprived black people of it for over 400 years. White people associate black power with violence because of their own inability to deal with blackness. If we had said Negro power, nobody would get scared. Everybody would support it. If we said power for colored people, everybody would be for that. But it's the word black that bothers people in this country. But that's the problem, not mine. That's the lie that says anything black is bad. You're all a college and university crowd. You've taken your basic logic course. You know about major premise, minor premise. People have been telling you anything all black is bad. Let's make our major premise. Major premise. Anything all black is bad. Minor premise or particular premise. I am all black. Therefore, I'm never going to be put in that bag. I'm all black. And I'm all good. Anything all black is not necessarily bad. Anything all black is only bad when you force, when you use force to keep whites out. Now that's what white people have done in this country. And they're projecting their same fear and guilt on us. And we won't have it. Let them handle their own affairs and their own guilt. Let them find their own psychologists. We refuse to be the therapy for white society any longer. We have gone stark, raving mad, trying to do it. I look at Dr. King on television every single day and I say to myself, now there's a man who's desperately needed in this country. There is a man full of love. There is a man full of mercy. There's a man full of compassion. But every time I see Lyndon on television, I say, Martin, baby, you got a long way to go. If we were to be real honest, we'll have to admit that most people in this country see things black and white. We live in a country that's geared that way. White people would have to admit that they are afraid to go into a black ghetto at night. They're afraid because they be beat up, lynched, looted, cut up, etc. It happens to black people inside the ghetto every day. Incidentally, since white people are afraid of that, they get a man to do it for them, a policeman. Figure his mentality. The first time a black man jumps, the white man is going to shoot him. Police brutality is going to exist on that level. The only time I hear people talk about nonviolence is when black people move to defend themselves against white people. Black people cut themselves every night in the ghetto. Nobody talks about nonviolence. White people beat up black people every day. Nobody talks about nonviolence. But as soon as black people start to move, the double standard comes into being. You can't defend yourself. You show me a black man who advocates ask him about Ho Chi Minh. We must wage a psychological battle on the right for black people to define themselves as they see fit and organize themselves as they see fit. We don't know whether the white community will allow for that organizing because once they do, they must also allow for the organizing inside their own community. It doesn't make a difference though. We're going to organize our way. The question is how we're going to organize our way. The question is how we're going to facilitate those matters. Whether it's going to be done with 1,000 policemen, with submachine guns, or whether it's going to be done in contexts where it's allowed by white people warding off those policemen. All white people who call themselves activists ready to move into white communities on 2 counts. On building new political institutions to destroy the old ones that we have, and to move around the concept of white youth refusing to go into armies. If so, then we can start to build a new world. We must urge you to fight now, to be the leaders of today, not tomorrow. This country is a nation of thieves. It stands on the brink of becoming a nation of murderers. We must stop it. We must stop it. We are on the move for our liberation. We are tired of trying to prove things to white people. We are tired of trying to explain to white people that we are not going to hurt them. We are concerned with getting the things we want, the things we have to be able to function. The question is, will white people overcome their racism and allow for that to happen in this country? If not, we have no choice but to say very clearly, move on over, or we're going to move over you. Once again, that was Stokely Carmichael, also known as Kwame Ture. This speech was made in 1966, soon after he was made chairman of the Non-Student Violent Coordinating Committee, and he created the slogan Black Power. All right, and so I mean, but what's crazy is you listen to that. All that stuff is going, I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible. But hey, I'm going to stop right now. We're about to go into the chat. So I'm going to go in here and start another podcast so that you can hear your Simbas going wild. All right, peace. This is Brother Hatim.